My privilege to introduce once again our dear brother friends. We all have been much moved by his steering discourses already during this assembly, and we look forward to hearing from him how he presents most timely counsel for us as keeping strict watch on how we walk. Please, brother friends.
The highly important fact that ought to dominate us while keeping strict watch on how we walk should be that God's kingdom rules, that it has been ruling during these past 44 years since 1914. The leading purpose of that kingdom is to see to it that God's will comes to pass, as in heaven, also upon earth. This wicked old world is fast approaching its end in the greatest tribulation of all history, because it has never been in harmony with God's will, but is the biggest opposer of it. As the enforcer of God's will, his kingdom will introduce a new order of new heavens and a new earth, where God's expressed will is certain to be the law. Wisdom dictates for us to give our wholehearted allegiance to God's kingdom, that we may not be brought to an end with this old world. Allegiance to God's kingdom means now bringing ourselves into full harmony with the will of God. Looking around at the world's religious and moral conditions and the relationships between nations and between individuals, we are forced to say that these are wicked days. So, the inspired advice that the Apostle Paul gave to Christians of his time is also most suitable for our time. Keep strict watch that how you walk is not as unwise, but as wise persons, buying out the opportune time for yourselves, because the days are wicked. On this account, cease becoming unreasonable, but go on perceiving what the will of Jehovah is. Also, do not get drunk with wine, in which there is debauchery, but keep getting filled with Spirit. In times past, before we made our dedication to God, we all walked according to the system of things of this world, according to the ruler of the authority of the air, the spirit that now operates in the sons of disobedience. We went walking just as the nations also walk in the unprofitableness of their minds, while they are in darkness mentally and alienated from the life that belongs to God, because of the ignorance that is in them, because of the insensibility of their hearts. Having come to be past all moral sense, they gave themselves over to loose conduct, to work uncleanness of every kind with greediness. Now, we should have ceased to walk that way. By our dedication to God, we have willed to walk according to God's will, that thereby we may walk with God. Because of the wickedness of the times, it is most wise and urgent for us to keep strict watch on how we walk. Have we gone back to walking with this world, or are we walking more closely with God? To answer this question, we have to perceive what the will of Jehovah is. This calls for study of God's written word. In his word, this brief statement of his will is found. This is what God's wills: the sanctifying of you, that you abstain from fornication, that each one of you should know how to get possession of his own vessel in sanctification and honor, not in covetous sexual appetite, such as also those nations have which do not know God. God has called us not with allowance for uncleanness, but in connection with sanctification. We dedicated ones have been brought together and formed into a theocratic organization. God's will is for him to have a clean organization, one that is sanctified for his use in an honorable way. To keep the theocratic organization clean in the midst of this immoral world and during these wicked times is quite a difficult task for us earthly members of it. But God's Spirit is with us to help us. While there is a personal responsibility resting on each one of us to join in keeping the organization clean and sanctified for Jehovah's use, a special responsibility weighs down on those who have been made overseers within the organization. We are living in the times of restoration of all things, of which God spoke through the mouth of his holy prophets of old time. In the first days of the Christian congregation, during the life of the 12 apostles of the Lamb, Jesus Christ, Jehovah raised up faithful overseers to declare his judgments and to give forth his counsels. For the times of restoration now, he has made this promise: I will bring back judges for you as at the first, and counselors for you as at the start. After this, you will be called City of Righteousness, Faithful Town. Isaiah 1:26, New World Translation. By means of conscientious overseers, under the appointed judge and wonderful counselor Jesus Christ, Jehovah keeps his organization righteous and faithful. The overseers, therefore, bear considerable responsibility. They are set forth as examples to the flock. Besides influence as such examples, they wield considerable authority in the local organization or in the circuit, district, branch territory, or zone in which they serve. They have to deal with lives, souls dedicated to Jehovah God, so that they are keeping watch over your souls as those who will render an account. What kind of account they render over these dedicated souls will determine God's judgments of the overseers. If anybody, the overseers need to keep strict watch on how they walk in their responsible office. The great power that overseers who are strong morally and spiritually wield for a faithful, righteous organization is illustrated in Moses' successor Joshua and in the older men of Israel that were associated with Joshua. Regarding the good influence that these had, we read, when Joshua sent the people away, then the sons of Israel went their way, each one to his inheritance, to take possession of the land. And the people continued to serve Jehovah all the days of Joshua. and of the days of the older men who extended their days after Joshua and who had seen all of Jehovah's great work that he did for Israel. The observant, informed, faithful older men of Israel acted as a theocratic bulwark against the invasion of heathenism into Jehovah's national congregation. This fact is clear from what happened to the congregation of Israel after those theocratic overseers died, and the new generation that did not know Jehovah or the work that he had done for Israel arose, and did not have the helpful example and counsel and watch care of those overseers. The candid record tells us the sons of Israel fell to doing what was bad in the eyes of Jehovah and serving the Baals. Thus they abandoned Jehovah, the God of their fathers, who had brought them out of the land of Egypt, and went following other gods from among the gods of the people who were all around them. And they began bowing down to them, so that they offended Jehovah. After Jehovah had raised up godly judges, by whom he rescued them from heathen oppressors, they quickly forgot what the judges had done for them as Jehovah's servants. Even to their judges they did not listen, but they had unfaithful intercourse with other gods and went bowing down to them. They quickly turned aside from the way in which their forefathers had walked by obeying the commandments of Jehovah. They did not do like that. Like the faithful judges and associated overseers of ancient Israel, the 12 apostles of Jesus Christ acted, as long as they lived, as a restraining power against the falling away of the congregation and the revealing of the man of lawlessness, the son of destruction, in control of the congregation. We today have been recovered from this religious falling away and from domination by the man of lawlessness class in Christendom. Invisibly with us is the greater Joshua to lead us into the coming new order of new heavens and a new earth. With us is also the faithful and discreet slave class, whom the greater Joshua, or Jesus, had appointed in charge of all his earthly belongings. These will act as an impassable bar to any intrusion by the spirit of apostasy and the man of lawlessness into the New World Society of Jehovah's Witnesses. Nonetheless, each dedicated individual needs to heed the Apostle Paul's solemn advice to keep strict watch on how we walk. Whereas this world and its God and ruler, Satan the devil, can no more take the entire congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses captive, yet the world and its God, Satan, keep trying to contaminate the organization and to enslave as many individual members as possible. The ancient Israelites, even with the prophet Moses among them, furnished us an example, warning us that individuals in the organization can be overreached to their destruction. When Moses was still in the neighborhood, but on top of Mount Sinai for 40 days, out of their sight, the Israelites had the golden calf made and proceeded to worship it along with noisy, loose conduct. When they saw that the eyes of their national overseer Moses were not fixed on them, they threw off restraint. Yes, within but 40 days from Moses' ascent, some Israelites were ready to forget the 10 Commandments and enjoy a wild time with idolatry and sex orgies. 40 days, 40 years later, although just across the Jordan River on the plains of Moab and just about to realize the miraculous fulfillment of Jehovah's promise to lead them into the promised land. Thousands of the new generation of Israelites turned their eyes the other way to look at the heathenish daughters of Moab. In their lust for immoral relations with them, those selfish-hearted Israelites were agreeable to joining these decoy women, servants of the devil, in worshiping the false god, Baal of Peor.